Right, let's dive into The Warriors. This 1979 cult classic, I know you've been wanting to unpack this one.
Oh, yeah.
We're going beyond just, like, the surface level today.
Okay.
We want to get into, like, all the juicy details, right? The origins, the reception, the legacy, how it blew people's minds back then, and how it's still so relevant today. So we've got some awesome articles, a bit of background from Wikipedia, and some cool analysis on the film's impact.
You know what's wild is how a movie so tied to 70s New York and its gangs actually comes from something way older, way more unexpected. We're talking ancient Greece.
Seriously. Ancient Greece.
Totally. Both the novel and the film were inspired by Xenophon's Anabasis. It's this crazy story from like 401 BC about 10,000 Greek mercenaries trying to get home through enemy territory.
Wow, okay, that's a twist I did not see coming.
And get this, Walter Hill, the director, he actually wove this connection right into the film. Remember that scene where one of the warriors is reading a comic book on the subway?
Yeah, vague.
That comic, it's a modern retelling of Anabasis.
No way.
Yeah.
I am definitely going to be looking for that next time I watch it. That's amazing. So, okay, a movie with roots in ancient Greece, but The Warriors got absolutely slammed when it came out, right?
Slammed is putting it lightly. It was a total media frenzy. Critics were horrified by the violence, like convinced it would turn every teenager into a gang member.
Yeah, I can see that.
Some of the reviews, brutal.
Like, how brutal are we talking?
Roger Ebert, Roger Ebert called it, and I quote, a ballet of stylized male violence, basically saying it was all style and no substance. And then there's Linda Gross from the Los Angeles Times. She went even further, called it shallow. Like the whole concept just didn't have any depth.
Ouch. I mean, yeah, the violence, it's intense, but shallow.
Huh.
That seems a bit harsh. There's got to be more to it than just guys fighting, right?
Well, think about it. This was the late 70s. New York was a different place.
Oh, yeah.
Crime, gangs, it was a real problem. People were scared. And this film, it just like hit a nerve, maybe a little too close to home for some.
So it was almost like it was holding up a mirror to society's fears, whether they meant to or not.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is that while the critics are freaking out, something totally unexpected happened.
What's that?
It started building this massive cult following.
You mean the same people they were worried about? They ended up loving it.
Exactly. And looking back, it's kind of amazing how the Warriors, even though it's so stylized, it accidentally ended up saying something really important about society. The gang dynamics, the fight for territory, the need to belong. It all spoke to the racial tensions and anxieties about city life that were bubbling under the surface in the 70s.
So it wasn't just mindless violence. It was reflecting something deeper about the times. And maybe the critics just, like, missed that because they were so focused on the violence.
Could be. But let's not forget what makes The Warriors so visually captivating. Walter Hill, he wanted it to feel like a comic book brought to life.
It really does have that, like, larger-than-life look.
Right. Those costumes, the baseball furies with their pinstripes and face paint, the Gramercy riffs with their orange karate outfits, and the weapons. The riffs using hockey sticks.
It's so over the top. I love it.
Exactly. And the way he films New York City, it becomes this neon-drenched, almost fantasy world.
Yeah, it's not quite the real New York. It's, like, stylized and gritty at the same time.
Exactly. And that brings us to another crucial element, the music. It's this crazy mix of disco, punk rock, and Barry Dvorak's original score. Pure 70s New York energy.
Oh, yeah. And Nowhere to Run. That's practically the Warriors' anthem.
For sure.
So the music, it's not just background noise. It really sets the tone, the mood, the whole atmosphere.
Definitely. It makes it more than just a street brawl. It's got this emotional punch, this, like, operatic feel.
Okay, but we got to talk about the most iconic line for the movie. Luther's Warriors come out to play. Chills every time.
Right, and the craziest part, that wasn't even in the script. Yeah. David Patrick Kelly, the actor who played Luther, he completely improvised that line. He was just messing around with some beer bottles, and boom, the line was born. Walter Hill loved it and kept it in. Pure genius.
Talk about a happy accident.
Yeah.
But things weren't always smooth sailing behind the scenes, right? I heard there was some serious tension between Walter Hill and the studio.
Oh, yeah, they definitely butted heads. Hill had a vision, and he was going to protect it. He wanted this stylized, almost mythical world. The studio, they were worried about money, and all the controversy the film might stir up.
I bet. So with all that back and forth, did the studio pressure ever actually change the film?
Well, there were those incidents at some of the screenings, right?
You mean the real-life violence? Like actual gangs saw the film and it caused trouble.
Yeah, that's what they say. Kind of scary how art can imitate life like that.
It's wild, right?
Because of those incidents, Paramount, the studio, they actually stopped advertising the movie.
Really?
Yeah, kind of ironic given they were so worried about it causing violence in the first place.
Okay, so we've talked about critics and studio drama, but there's this one story I just got to ask about. Ronald Reagan. President Ronald Reagan. The story goes he was a fan of the Warriors.
You heard right.
It's just hard to imagine. Ronald Reagan, Law and Order, enjoying a movie about gang warfare.
Yeah, believe it. Apparently, he loved it so much he called Michael Beck, the actor who played Swan, just to tell him how much he enjoyed the film.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
What do you think it was about the film that appealed to someone like Reagan?
Who knows? But it shows you the power of film, right? It can reach people you'd never expect.
And speaking of reaching people, The Warriors has left a pretty impressive mark on pop culture, wouldn't you say?
It's everywhere. Music, fashion, video games, you name it. The Warriors is part of our cultural DNA at this point. John Carpenter's Escape from New York, Gareth Evans' The Raid, Redemption, even Kanye West's Stronger music video, they all have little bits of the Warriors in them.
That's incredible. From controversial film to cultural icon, that's got to be a testament to the power of storytelling.
Totally. Even when a film gets slammed at first, if it connects with people on a deep level, it can overcome anything, like the Warriors themselves, fighting against the odds, making it home,
Yeah.
and becoming legends in the process. It's amazing how a movie about gangs can make you think about what you would do in those situations.
Yeah, totally. But let's get back to the film itself. What really strikes me about The Warriors is how all these gangs, even though they're so different, they all seem to have this, code, this weird sense of honor.
Right, like a twisted version of chivalry or something.
Exactly.
Right.
It's most obvious in that opening scene, the conclave. Thousands of gang members, all under this uneasy truce. You can feel the tension, but there's also this sense of order, a hierarchy, almost like some strange underground kingdom.
Yeah, it's like a bizarre reflection of the real world, order and chaos all mixed up. And that's what makes it so intense. You never know when it's all going to explode.
It's true. Speaking of intense, we got to talk about the baseball Furies. Those guys are iconic. The face paint, the masks, the whole baseball thing, it's terrifying.
They're pure aggression. Walter Hill knew how to use visuals to make a gang scary, and he nailed it with the Furies. Taking something as innocent as a baseball bat and turning it into a weapon of fear, it's brilliant.
And the way they move, so synchronized, like a pack of wolves. No wonder there's such a popular Halloween costume.
It's that primal fear, right? Being surrounded, outnumbered, and that scene in Riverside Park, the Warriors versus the Furies, the tension is unreal.
Oh man, that scene is so well done. The slow motion, the close-ups, the sounds of those bats hitting, it's brutal. And the fact that it's in a park, a place that's supposed to be safe, that makes it even creepier.
Like nowhere is safe. The whole movie has that feeling. Every encounter is like a mini thriller. The Turnbull ACs in that bus, the Lizzies with their traps, those punks in the subway, you're on the edge of your seat the whole time.
Walter Hill, he's a master of suspense, that's for sure. My favorite scene has got to be that chase on the subway tracks. The trains, the darkness, the shouting is pure chaos.
And Hill uses the city itself to create that feeling. The subway, it should be a way to get around, but in The Warriors, it's a maze, a trap.
And the sound, the screeching brakes, the rumbling tracks, it's like you're right there with them.
And that shot of Swan in front of the train, the headlights, it's such a powerful image, the fight for survival.
Absolutely. But it's not all darkness and violence. There are moments of connection, too, like Swan and Mercy.
Right, they actually care about each other. Swan wants to protect her, and Mercy, she pushes him, makes him think.
It's a reminder that even in the worst situations, you can still find humanity, find connection.
It makes you think about how the film accidentally tapped into the social anxieties of the time, too.
Yeah, we talked about that a bit, but it's worth exploring more, right?
Definitely. I mean, late 70s New York, crime was out of control, the city was broke, people were scared. The Warriors, it showed all that. A city falling apart, ruled by gangs. Even though it's stylized, it felt real.
So it wasn't just a movie. It was reflecting what people were actually feeling.
Exactly. The themes, the fear, it all resonated with the audience. It became a cultural mirror.
And people still debate its message, right? Some see it as glorifying violence, others as a warning.
For sure, but no matter what you think, it's left a mark on our culture.
Oh, absolutely. And its popularity hasn't faded. New generations keep discovering it.
The power of a good story, right. Those fans, they keep it alive. The screenings, the conventions, even recreating the warrior's journey, that's dedication.
And all the spin-offs, the games, the comics. It's like people can't get enough of the Warriors.
Well, the themes are timeless, survival, loyalty, finding your place in a world that can be pretty messed up. Who hasn't felt that?
It's true. We all go through tough times. We all want to belong. The Warriors, it shows all of that.
And it's so stylish, so gritty. The visuals, the music, the action, it grabs you and doesn't let go.
It's a film that gets under your skin, that's for sure. But it's not just about the spectacle. It makes you think, too.
Absolutely. Is it glorifying violence? Is it warning against it? There are no easy answers. It makes you question your own beliefs.
Which leads us to another interesting aspect, the whole idea of masculinity.
Right. These guys are tough. They're fighting for their lives. But you also see moments of weakness, of doubt.
It makes you wonder about what it really means to be a man, how much of it is an act.
And the women, they're not just there to be rescued. Mercy, the Lizzies, they're strong. They use the system to their advantage.
They're not just victims, they're survivors too. And having an all-female gang, the Lizzies, that was a pretty bold move for the time.
It challenges how we think about women in that kind of world. They're not girlfriends. They're a force to be reckoned with.
And it reflects what was happening in society at the time, right?
Yeah.
Women fighting for equality.
Exactly. The Warriors, it might not have been intentional, but it captured that changing dynamic between men and women.
Even a simple genre film can say a lot about the world if you look closely enough.
The Warriors definitely does that. It's entertaining, but it also makes you think.
Okay, but let's shift gears a bit and talk about the technical side of things. The cinematography, it's incredible.
Oh, absolutely. The way Hill uses light and shadow, the way he frames the shots, it creates this atmosphere of tension, of beauty and danger all at once.
Especially New York at night. It's like a different world, both beautiful and scary.
Yeah, it's the real city, but it's also like stepping into a myth.
And the editing is amazing too, the quick cuts, the way it builds suspense. You're on the edge of your seat the whole time.
You really feel like you're running with them.
And the slow motion sequences during the fights, they're almost poetic.
It elevates the violence, makes you think about the consequences.
But The Warriors, it's more than just a visually impressive film. It captures a very specific time in history.
Late 70s America, the anxieties about crime and poverty, the feeling that things were falling apart, it's all there.
It's a reminder that even the most fantastical stories can reflect what's happening in the real world.
The Warriors does that really well.
We've talked a lot about the film's legacy, its influence on pop culture, but let's dig into that a bit more. What are some specific examples of how The Warriors has influenced other films, shows, even music?
Oh man, it's everywhere. Visually, you can see it in Escape from New York, that gritty urban feel, the costumes, the story itself, that whole idea of a group fighting to survive against all odds. It's become a classic action movie trope. Look at the Raid movies, for example.
Right. And it goes beyond film.
Yeah.
Video games like Grand Theft Auto, those open worlds, the gangs, the missions, it's all very Warriors-inspired. And there was that awesome Warriors video game, too, brought the whole experience to life.
And music, you can't forget music. Hip-hop artists, they love sampling the Warriors, the dialogue, the music. The Wu-Tang Clan, they've referenced it a lot, that idea of brotherhood, survival. It resonates with them.
It's amazing, right? A film from over 40 years ago, still inspiring people today.
The Warriors, it's not just a film, it's a cultural phenomenon.
Totally. And that's why we're spending this whole episode talking about it. It deserves to be celebrated.
It's got something for everyone, whether you're a film expert or just someone who loves a good story.
All right. Before we move on, just a little something to think about. All the things we've discussed, the visuals, the music, the themes, the characters.
Yeah.
What is it about the Warriors that speaks to you? Why has this film stuck with you?
That's a good question. And one worth pondering as we head into the final part of our deep dive.
We've talked about a lot, the origins, the impact, even how the film was made. But now I want to focus on what makes The Warriors really stick with you. What makes it more than just a cool action movie?
Right. It's a film that stays with you, makes you think, challenges your ideas.
You know, it's funny. The film's journey to becoming a cult classic, it's kind of like the Warriors' journey in the film itself.
Oh, I see what you mean.
They're misunderstood, underestimated, facing all these obstacles.
Yeah, they get knocked down over and over.
But they keep going. They rely on each other. They stick to their code no matter what.
And in the end, they make it. They survive. They earn respect. They find their way home.
Exactly. Just like the Warriors itself. It defied the critics, it found its audience, and became this legend.
It's like a perfect metaphor, right?
Yeah.
Never give up. Believe in yourself.
So we've covered a lot: ancient Greece, the controversy, the influence on pop culture. But as we wrap up, what do you think is the most important thing to take away from the Warriors? What do you want our listener to remember?
That's a tough one. But I think for me, it's that even when things are dark, when there's chaos, violence, there's still hope. The warrior's journey, it's brutal, but it shows that you have the power to choose your path, to fight for what you believe in, and to find strength in the people around you, even when it seems like all is lost. The warriors teaches us to never give up, to hold on to our humanity, and to believe that things can get better.
That's a great way to put it. A message we all need to hear sometimes. So to our listener, go watch The Warriors again. See it with fresh eyes, with everything we've talked about in mind. Don't just focus on the action, look deeper. You'll find a story about survival, loyalty, the strength of the human spirit.
And who knows, maybe it'll inspire you to face your own challenges, find your own tribe, and come out stronger on the other side.
And on that note, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Always a pleasure.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.